In the year 1975, the vision of the year 2000 was complete, and it was constructed to beat the vision of the future that had been teased by the movie Rollerball. We're not talking about the movie Rollerball. Oh no. We're talking about Death Race 2000. Produced by Roger Corman, our first Roger Corman film, and directed by Paul Bartel. I don't know.
Bartel.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
How are you?
Have we started? Are we talking? We're
talking.
doing this. Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Hey.
You can call me Machine Gun Arbuckle.
I was going to call you the swastika sweetheart.
That's Calamity Chuck.
Oh my God, Matilda the Hun is my favorite actress in most of the movies she's in. Roberta Collins is fantastic.
Yeah, the Nazi exploitation in this. There's lots of exploitation in this.
Oh my God, there's so much exploitation.
And they get the Nazi exploitation in there, and it's like just wink, wink. You know, it's all very fun. The Nazis get it. Everyone gets it in this. But yeah, so we're talking about Death Race 2000 from 1975. This movie, like I kind of teased in the opening there, was Roger Corman being very Roger Corman, was like, oh, someone's making a futuristic action sports movie. We got to get ours out first. See, he saw the early publicity for Rollerball, and he's like, we can beat them to the punch. And they did. Rollerball, I think, was a pretty good hit too, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty big hit.
Yeah, and it's pretty well. I mean, it's got the cult standing too. I mean, like people.
Oh yeah, for sure it is. I mean, man, Death Race 2000 was no slouch. I mean, this movie made, their estimates range up to like $8 million on maybe $500,000 budget. That's pretty freaking good. This was in the era of Roger Corman where he his budgets were kind of creeping up there. Like he was like the minimum budget we had at this point in time was like about $300,000. They kind of had to keep up with the technology of the day, the look of the films of the day. Like their production value had to be just good enough to pass by. They couldn't get away with men in rubber suits anymore for the most part, right?
Yeah, but these are. They were cranking out successes. They knew exactly.
Oh yeah, they knew the formula.
And they knew what. I mean, yeah.
They also kind of had their. Roger is still, pumping them out. He has his finger on the pulse of the zeitgeist. He knows kind of always what people wanted at the time, and it just so happened that 1975 was the time for, post-apocalyptic, futuristic death game movies.
Right.
There really weren't very many of these. Honestly, there weren't any. I was going to check my most dangerous game list. There were certainly many, many, many most dangerous game movies before this came out, but this is kind of like the first, in Rollerball, we're kind of like the first death game movies. And this one, I don't know. I saw this when I was like in my late teens, and I was just blown away by it. I still love this movie. Every time I watch this movie, I kind of forget stuff about it. It's sort of weird. It doesn't stick in my brain like the concept does, but all the things that happen don't. So it's always a little bit like watching it for the first time for some reason.
Do you think the first time you saw this was San Diego? Because I would have seen it like right when you moved out there.
No.
That's your late teens.
I moved to San Diego when I was 20. I saw this when I was like 17.
Oh, okay.
16, 17. I was rocking my Death Race 2000 shirt that I still have to this day that I'm going to wear tomorrow to Carb Day. And when I was like 17.
Amazing. Is it like a midriff shirt now?
No, it's a ringer. It still fits me. It's kind of weird.
I'm not saying I'm for some reason imagining you got taller since then. Nothing
No, I
else.
did not get taller than then. I am the same height I was when I was 17.
I'm the same height I was when I was 12.
I grew out.
Yes.
Quite a bit, actually.
So are we
yes,
sure that's not a belly shirt?
In some ways, it has crept up the waistline, but it still fits me.
Yeah.
Fits me.
I didn't mean that to sound rude. Just to clarify, that wasn't a rude comment.
Rude
I think I saw. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm the fat one here. I'm pretty sure that I saw this for the first time in San Diego. So you probably watched it with us. I'm guessing then, even though you'd seen it already, because we watched this like 98, 99. I think we watched it like 5 times once everyone was freaking out about Y2K bullshit. It was like, well, let's watch all the movies about the end of the world in 2000 and all that stuff because it was coming, right? Yeah. But this movie is more poignant now for me than it was then. And it's just a blast. It's a blast. It was then. It is now. It's a little stupider. Like, I always knew it was stupid. But now I'm like, this is really fucking stupid, but I love it.
Oh, yeah. Like, even like the heady aspects of it are pretty stupid.
Yes.
It's all dumbed down on the surface.
Yes.
I will say, too, that this isn't the first Death game. We've covered one of the first Death games already, and that was the seventh victim. 10th victim. Jesus, I always get those two mixed up. 10th victim, and also the Million game, based on the same property, came out in France in 1970.
Oh, interesting.
So those two are kind of like probably. You might lump in Westworld. Like I think Westworld is kind of Death game. But this is, I mean, when you think about combining an actual sport with the act of killing humans, this is definitely one of the first, if not the first, right? It is like that gladiatorial aspect, but take a sport you love and then add, murder.
So this is saying
it's pretty much the first one.
So you're saying hunting is not a sport then?
Yeah, no. I mean hunting is already inherently killing, right?
Right. Okay, fair. So got it. This one is like racing as a sport, right? I get you.
Rollerball is like roller derby is a sport, right?
Yeah.
You add killing to it. It's pretty much the first of its kind to do that. Yeah. I think the only movie to predate this that has to do with like vehicular murder, like intentional vehicular murder, might be Duel. Might be Steven Spielberg's Duel.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like, when did Christine come out? Yeah, that was after this.
That was after.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. I've interrupted, I think, Jeff on multiple occasions here. What were you?
I was just going to say, I like it. No, this is obviously, this is up my alley here. I mean, it's Roger Corman. It's, I mean, it's an early Sylvester Stallone when he is playing a cartoon character. It's, Mary Warnov. It's a movie directed by Paul Bartel. I love this movie. There's very little to it. But I think there's a lot to like about this movie, and it knows that it knows what it's doing. We have weirdo. We have a weirdo lead. We have cool ass cars. We have characters, like just characters. They can't even be remotely real people. They're just characters. We got a little bit of boobies. We got some butt. We got killing. We got head crushing.
Boobies and butt.
And head crushing.
Crushing.
Boobies and butt and head crushing.
I gotta ask Chuck a quick question.
Go for it.
Paul Bartel. is in one of your most famous movies of all. It's not one of your most famous movies. One of your most favorite movies of all time. Do you know which one? Without looking.
I'm not okay. I won't look. I'm not looking. Tombstone.
Nope. He is in The Usual Suspects.
I almost said that.
He is in the New York's Most Finest scene.
The lineup?
He's the one.
Oh, the cab.
Cab. Well,
Yes.
It's not. It's a police car, but he's the one that the cab service, in quotes, picks up the hotel. That's Paul Bartel.
Yeah, he has the
The hat on, and
I recognize him now. But
yep, that is him. He's a good actor in his own right.
Yeah, and I mean he's all over the he's all over the Roger Corman scene. He was in he had a bit part, or not necessarily a bit part, but he was in Hollywood Boulevard a year after this, which was the Joe Dante movie that famously was the Bet movie that Corman was like, you have to do this movie in, like 2 weeks on $20,000 or whatever it was. And he's like, all right, challenge accepted. And then he went and, it was $54,000. He had to make it for less than $60,000 in like 2 weeks or whatever. So he went, and because it was a New World picture and it was, Roger Corman, he went in and he found a bunch of old clips from movies, one of which was from Death Race, and was able to fill out a movie with inserting the new cast into circumstances that were in old Roger Corman movies. It's kind of fantastic. But yeah, and then of course, then you got he was in later on, of course, he directed Eating Raoul.
Mm-hmm.
He was
it's probably his most famous, I would say. Him and Warnoff.
Mary Warnoff, yeah. But yeah, I mean, those two have been, I mean, they're all over the Corman.
Yeah. For sure.
The Corman world.
They show up. I always love the Bartel and Warnoff show up at the beginning of Shopping Mall.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
Where they're essentially playing their Eating Raoul.
Yeah, exactly.
Characters.
Yeah. I actually asked Warnowski about that. He would when they showed Shopping Mall on Joe Bob, the Last Drive-In. Warnowski had no idea, and I just decided to message him out of the blue. And he was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And we started chatting for like 20 minutes while that episode was airing. And he said they just happened to be around. He knew them personally, and they just happened to be around. He was like, "Yeah, let's put you in the movie."
Well, yeah, Jim Wynorski is definitely. I mean, he certainly comes in from the from that Corman group. So, I mean, if Roger Corman is the center of the spoke of the wheel, right? It's like all these people. Of course, they're all connected to that same thing. Now he's in this too. He's Frankenstein's doctor, which is great. As soon as he showed up, I was like, awesome.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, this is, this is good stuff. I guess we should probably kind of set the world maybe. In 1979, there is an economic depression is what they call it, the world crash. So I assume that it's probably an economic depression.
Yeah, it's some kind of you know what? There aren't enough movies like this that blame the French, right? Like how many post-apocalyptic economic crash movies blame the French? That's pretty great.
Well,
the French or at least the U.S. government is blaming the French government
for
that
everything.
That might not be true. Probably
Right.
isn't, but that's the scapegoat. is the French.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the scapegoat that's used for the, for the uprising.
The terrorists and the uprising. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty common thing now, even recently, right? When you want to oppress the people, you tell them there's an imminent danger from elsewhere.
Right, right. But it's not very often in these type of movies that it's the French.
No, I was responding to you saying it's probably not true. I would say it's definitely not true.
Right. Most definitely not. I mean, there was clearly some kind of like some bad blood potentially with the French leading up to the events of this. But yeah, once shit went sideways, it was like, oh, it's all the French fault. Yeah.
Well, when we were kids, everyone talked shit about the French. So it was probably a 70s like norm to hate on the French, I'm guessing. But it was always
like, I always remember the shit on the French was always just like, they always retreat or they always surrender. Yeah. Like
or they were dirty.
Yeah. Or that froggy talk, or they're dirty. Like it was never that they would be capable of taking down the world economy.
Right. I think it's a joke. It's a joke. It's funny. Yeah.
It is funny. Yeah.
But so we do find out that at that point that the United States became what they called the United Provinces. And the impression that I have is that at that point in time, whoever was the president just stayed in power. And he became basically...
Well, yeah, it's totalitarianism.
Yeah, it is definitely totalitarianism. There's a lot of fasci behavior in this. They
rule from Japan. So sorry, go ahead.
No, he's... and there's this kind of... It's what I kind of like about this is that it's all kind of old feeling at this point. It's gone on long enough to where people have just kind of adapted to it. Now, there's obviously an uprising coming, but there's like people have been twisted by it in some ways to the point where it's like, oh my God, I can't freaking wait for the death race to watch people's heads get crushed under tires on the street.
I mean, there's a lot of this in Stephen King's The Running Man, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like it's all there. The dystopian society, the everybody's probably living like a really bleak existence, but hey, forget about all of that. We have this great entertainment of human death for you to watch.
You feel better because you're not the ones being crushed by the cars. And it's kind of like, R.I.P. Jerry Springer, but it was like watching Jerry Springer back in the 90s. It's like, well, at least I don't have it like they do. It's that kind of idea, right? It's but then there's also fanaticism around it too, where you have a group of loyal fans of one of the racers who are literally choosing someone to be sacrificed to their favorite racer. That's a scene that's kind of eerie.
Oh yeah, it's very eerie.
It's the one scene that happens more or less right in the center of the movie that actually feels less exploitation and more like horror in some ways.
For sure, especially when you understand the motivations, the ultimate motivations of Frankenstein. When he purposefully kills all the doctors and the nurses, that's just funny. Right? Like that's just funny. Like they're wheeling out all the geriatrics. It's euthanasia day at Sister Mercy's hospital or whatever, right? And he could take the easy points. I think they're 100 points each for all the geriatrics, but he decides to go off road and kill all the nurses and doctors who wheeled him out there. And so he's definitely at this point. Well, the one announcer says something about the fact that there's no denying he has a sense of humor, right?
Right.
But yeah, when he kills the cultist, and then he says, "She was showing me she loved me." It's like, ooh, Are you a little bit caught up in your own persona there? Like, it is
You're sniffing your own farts, Frankenstein?
It is interesting that they went through with that kill. Yeah.
It's kind of like the Omen, almost. Like the guy
did it for you,
Damien.
Yeah. I did want to say before we got too far into this movie is like wacky races.
Yeah.
Basically.
For the R-rated set.
Yeah, the R-rated wacky races. And Sylvester Stallone is totally, what the hell's his name with Muttley?
It's not,
I had it earlier. He's the train track dude. Dirk Dastardly.
Yeah.
Dastardly, yeah.
It totally reminds me, because it's very cartoonish in its representation of everything. It just reminds me of Wacky Races with murder, basically. That's all I had. I wanted to get that in there.
No, let's talk about our cast of
The players
in this race. So every year there is a death race. This is just to determine who the U.S. champion would be to ultimately, from what I understand, go on the race against other people from the world. Is that correct?
Honestly, I don't even know. I didn't even pick up on that. So
yeah.
Well, because they say you had to qualify, and so one of the people qualified in Watkins Glen, and now they're in New York City, which, by the way, every place in the United States looks like Southern California.
I wonder why.
Yeah, right. It was because it's Roger Corman. He's not taking the filming all over.
Oh, we're gonna shoot on location. Okay, great. California, cool.
Yeah. Where's this supposed to be? Doesn't matter. But yeah, then they say this is for the United States Championship. I thought it was implied, at least, that they would go on and race the champions from the other countries. But yeah, I don't know. I
don't know.
I could be wrong on that.
Who knows?
But
Very possible because the Nazis are from Milwaukee.
Right. Well, they definitely say it's the U.S. championship because everybody had to qualify to get to this race.
Right. Fair.
Yeah. So let's start. Let's start with the Nazis, because it's so. In a way, it's kind of funny. I mean, it really isn't nowadays because we flirt a little bit too much with these people, but it is kind of funny that everybody has their own group of fans, and there are just people there waving those little Nazi flags as if it's just like they're waving like a pennant for their favorite team. And
it's like nationalism almost.
Well, yeah. it's tribalism in the sense that you're rooting for your team. Right. I mean, if this was, it's like Chuck, it would be like you and me going there with our little pennants for, Washington and Buffalo, and sitting in the stands and watching the game.
Right.
And they're not doing it because they're only kind of innocently buying into the look and the sayings and stuff. They're just rooting for their favorite character, and yet it's just there they are, just waving their little Nazi flags.
I don't know. It feels like you're reading more into that, or at least
I don't think he's reading enough into it. I think that it's a way to show the political factions in a society that is on the brink of collapse.
Oh, for the movie, yes.
Yeah.
For the people, who knows what their motivations are? You can't tell with these fans what their motivations are.
But they don't look. I mean, they're not necessarily dressed in any. Like some of the fans were just late teens, early 20s people just sitting there in the stands like a fan, and they just had like the little flags.
Right.
They don't seem. They're. It's not. It's demagoguery. It's not nationalism. It's like they're all. Each group of fans are coalescing around the character that they're rooting for in the race. So it's more of they're more like cult of personalities than they are actually nationalists.
Well, I agree that they're cult of personalities, but the only one that is making a political statement is the Nazi. I mean, she even says, like, when she wins a race, it'll be from a member of the master race.
Women.
Right.
Women. She follows it up with, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yes. But, so yeah, I mean, it could honestly, yeah, you're right though. It could be a joke, right? They could be like, this is our wrestling persona, right?
Because there is very much a pro wrestling feel to it, because
most definitely.
because everybody has a it's a theme, their car and their person. Like, I mean, Sylvester Stallone is obviously a gangster, like a 30s gangster.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so but go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say I agree with you, because, like, on the wrestling angle, because these people have no other outlet, right? Like, the Nazis aren't going to do anything. The only people that are going to do anything are the revolutionaries, right? They're the real faction against the
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all the other people, yes, are in some kind of show, right?
Right. Yeah, I
agree with that.
I really do think that this is all, I mean, they're playing a persona.
Playing up a persona. Yeah.
In the movie, it represents one thing, right? Which is like a grander scale. And then for the characters, obviously, it represents something different.
Sure.
It's hard to explain. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, so Matilda the Hun is the Nazi character, and that's Roberta Collins. Now, Roberta Collins is fantastic in everything she's in. She's in the Big Bird Cage, or no, the Big Dollhouse. She's in Caged Heat, which is the Jonathan Demme women in prison flick. That's really pretty good. She has a bit part in Wonder Woman. Yeah, she's pretty fantastic, and I'm always happy when she shows up. And she is always insane. And she is insane in this movie. Like, she throws herself into roles, and it is great. But and then her navigator is Herman the German Bach, who's just this nerdy little guy. And he was actually he's played by Fred Grandy, who was Gopher on the Love Boat. So he would go on to be rather famous. But then you have Calamity Jane, who's Mary Warnoff, who's also always fantastic. In fact, she and Matilda end up getting into a little bit of a rivalry when Matilda runs down her navigator.
Nobody scores my navigator and gets away with it.
Right. And then when Matilda gets launched off a cliff, she has the best delivery of "holy shit" in movie history. So yeah, that's Calamity Jane, and her whole thing, of course, she's a cowboy or a cowgirl. So it's like it's a whole right.
Then you've also got Martin Cove.
I was gonna say Martin Cove is in this, isn't he?
Yeah. He's
Nero the hero,
and he is the biggest baby. Like, he is so full of himself. It's like he tells his navigator Cleopatra to sit down because he's like trying to be seen by his fans, and he doesn't last long in this race.
No, he doesn't. He falls for the old exploding baby trick.
The baby bomb trip?
Yeah, the baby bomb trick. I mean, yeah. Because his navigator told him that when everyone scatters, go for the woman and the baby.
Yeah.
Hit the baby.
And these people at a picnic scattered, but it was all a trap. It was I do like the what they call them, the chicken something, the people who were diving into the manhole, and what was it Sylvester Stallone that ended up like getting the guy who didn't have
no, he got the second guys. He got the guys that were in the manhole.
Okay, was it Frankenstein who got the
whoever's ahead of him hit the first guy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there are people who are like actually trying to get it because like there's a
bullfighter.
There's a bullfighter for Calamity Jane.
Yep.
Who whoever called your car the bull only got it half right.
Right.
So there's Sylvester Stallone, that's Joe Machine Gun Viterbo, which is also just kind of a cool name because even though it's not spelled like it, it does have turbo.
It's turbo. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And he is desperate to overtake David Carradine, who's Frankenstein, as the favorite racer.
Yeah, and Frankenstein has won twice.
Frankenstein's the only person who's won multiple times. Yeah.
Yes, and Viterbo is second in like every single
other
thing there is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Points and wins and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's always trying to catch up to Frankenstein and be the number one guy at that point.
Right.
Now Sylvester Stallone or Machine Gun Viterbo's his navigator is Myra, who is kind of your classic like kind of bubbly like New York Brooklyn type of accent.
A bit of a ditzy blonde.
Yeah.
With tits. Yeah.
And then there's Frankenstein, and then his navigator, who's Annie Smith, who we find out has been planted there.
Yes.
Very specifically.
By her grandmother,
Thomasina
Payne.
Yep. Who's supposedly a direct related to Thomas Paine. By
Interesting.
Thomasina Payne.
We have Payne. We have Pander. Which is funny.
God, yeah. The Grace Pander, who is dear friends with every one of these.
Yes.
That's fantastic. There's a little bit of Hunger Games in this, right? Like there's a spectacle to this that is totally ridiculous and very obviously fake.
Right.
But it's shit-eating grin type of like broadcasting.
Well, she seems like she's into it, and then the other announcer, that Junior, I think it's Junior Bruce, rarely or doesn't even open his mouth when he talks. Basically,
he's just all teeth.
It feels like he's been beaten into this almost. Like he's not into it, and then Pander is like obviously pandering.
Right. Yeah, and there's always someone whispering in his ear. Like he's trying to kind of like announce the race as it's happening, but then when a racer dies, he starts talking about it. Someone will creep up behind him, whisper in his ear like fucking Slugworth.
Yeah,
and it'll be like, "Oh, they're perfectly fine.
Oh, yes.
all right.
Oh yeah, that is Junior. He's a little bit louder than the guy I'm thinking of, who's the other announcer.
Carl Benson.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I had the names mixed up.
Junior Bruce or Carl Benson is the actor who plays Harold. That's the older guy. Junior Bruce is actually a famous disc jockey, Don Steele.
Sounded like one. Yeah, now that I have them correctly identified. Yeah.
All right, and yes, sirree.
Oh, by the way, Myra was played by Louisa Moritz, who this is the second time we've seen her in a movie. She was the girl that was obtained
over the Cuckoo's Nest
for Brad Dourif.
Yep.
One Flew Over the
Oh,
Cuckoo's
yes.
Yep.
Interesting.
But anyway, yeah. So Jason, talk about the point system here, because this is a point system that I think it's a bit created nebulous. A real life thing.
Well, it's weird. All right, so I definitely want to talk about this because, first of all, women are scored 10 points more than men in any category. Okay, so doesn't matter whatever category, a woman versus a man, 10 more points for women. So, wow, there's commentary there. And then there's also teens are 40, toddlers are 70.
Well, it's the system isn't the system based on the cruelty of so like it is thought to be more cruel to kill infants and older people.
That's the way I kind of thought it. Yeah, it's like the more cruel, but then there's a societal kind of things you can read.
Well, sure. This, right? Absolutely. But like in story, like the idea, because the one guy who died, it's like, oh, too bad he wasn't 40. He would have been worth more.
Right.
And it's like, because he was only 38, which means that that's not cool to kill the guy. But that also has kind of like a Logan's Run aspect to it, right? Yeah.
Like, and with old people, it's like, oh, they're a drain on society. Let's get them out of there. Make them a high point total, which is they're 100 for your elderly. Get them out of there. Toddlers are 70. They're higher than teens because, all right, teens are already integrating into society. Toddlers are, again, like, we don't need more people, right? We're overpopulated. We can't feed who we have. Let's get them out of there. Right.
Right. Well, it could also
and then women being 10 points more than men is just like that's a male fantasy, right? Or no, actually, they want more women than men, no, you want less.
It would be.
How does that work? You want more women than men. So
no, but the fantasy would go to the totalitarian. You don't want somebody who wants to rise up, who has reason to rise up against you. Because who is leading the actual resistance? It's a woman.
It is an old woman. She fits into two categories. Yep.
Right.
And she's smart, and her son, I assume it's her son, I don't really know, is like just wants violence to combat violence, right? And that's what you'd expect from a young man.
Because both Thomasina Payne and Annie Smith are incredibly intelligent. Or they're at least treated very intelligently by the story. Yeah. Yeah. So like when people die, well, and then there's some people that they've never been killed in the race before. So they have to try to figure out if that's cool.
A race official. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, Viterbo kills a race official and they have to confer on whether or not it
was Frankenstein that did it, but
you're right. It was right. It was Viterbo who killed his own crew.
Yes.
Well, no, what you're thinking of also is Frankenstein, or Frankenstein runs over the guy, the commissioner of the whole race thing.
Yeah.
And he did it just. I mean, like at first you think he just did it because, oh my God, this guy will kill anything. Then you find out later he's got ulterior motives. But Sylvester Stallone, Viterbo kills the people in St. Louis who are hanging up a sign that says "Welcome Frankenstein."
Oh yeah, well yeah, because he doesn't like that they're.
He doesn't like that they're.
Where's my sign?
Where's my sign? Exactly.
But he did kill his own crew member.
He did. One of those guys was John Landis.
Yeah, Jonathan Landis, baby.
It was. I like when they rule it a legal kill for Frankenstein when he kills a race official. They said race officials all over the country are fair game.
Yeah. I love it.
But yeah, so that was I guess technically it was a deacon because the thing wasn't necessarily whether or not he was a race official as much as he was a deacon too. So it's like, okay, well, there's race official, and then on top of that, he's a religious person.
Well, I think it's both.
I think it's both. I think that there's a conflation of the games and religion. Yeah, like it's because they call him like a religious.
Yeah, he's a deacon of the race. Yeah. I don't think he's a deacon of
Well, Harold's the one who, until they say like, "Oh, it's fair game," he's the one who's trying to figure out if Deacon is even a worthy fucking title,
Right.
which is hilarious because he's trying to like, suss out whether or not it's like, well, Deacon, the name itself was kind of creative, and then they come in and it's like, yep, he's fair game. They've allowed the points.
He's Deacon of the bipartisan party, actually. And his name is Chrysler.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's just good.
So yeah, you had already mentioned that Annie is a plant for the revolution, and her job.
And he says, "Sorry, I have to get this in." And while it's relevant, he says, "Race officials from coast to coast will be falling like flies."
Except for you didn't say it as happy as
as Junior Bruce did. Yeah.
Yeah, Annie's a plant, and her job is to get Frankenstein to a specific place at a specific time, for a reason, which I assume we'll get to. But while that's happening, the rest of the revolution is in place, right, to try to kill all the other racers. They basically want them to call the race and then take Frankenstein as a hostage to negotiate with the president.
Right. Because supposedly Frankenstein is beloved by the president.
Yes, and he's been replaced bit by bit. He's almost like the ship of Theseus. Like every part of him has been replaced by some. He lost his right eye, then he lost his left eye, then his leg got burned to the bone, and he lost his other leg.
If he hasn't won the race, he has been in a horrific accident where he had to have like parts of his body. Like there's almost nothing of him that is his original.
No, he's completely replaced except for the bone in his right leg, I think.
It's something like that, yeah. However, it doesn't take very long.
Survivor of the Titanic pileup of 77 or 97 lost a leg and an arm.
The only survivor of the Titanic.
Titanic of 97. Titanic pileup of 97.
However, either some of that is horseshit, or he puts on a mask, because he does wear a mask.
He does wear a mask,
but when he takes it off,
he reveals that pretty early.
Yep.
And you think it's to cover up his horrifically deformed face, because you can see a little bit through the eye, one of the eye holes, but actually his face is perfectly fine.
Yep.
And there's no scars, but there's always a glove on his right hand.
I'm inclined to believe that's the only thing that's really wrong with him.
Yes. He has that minimum.
I'm inclined to think that
lost a hand. Yes.
Yeah.
Because what's something that what is somebody that wants to rule over everybody need? He needs a champion.
Yeah.
And if you build a hero around that, and you put, you say that is the exceptional nature of our people, our race, our country, whatever. It's a way to kind of grab hold of power even more so through somebody else. So I think the president has made up all this shit about what's going on with Frankenstein. And he also said that he is only just the next Frankenstein. That there will be other Frankensteins after him, and and there were Frankensteins before him. So I don't think anything's wrong with him. I think he's replaced ones that have died in past races.
Probably, yeah. That's reasonable for sure. Yep.
Because he does. I mean, and there's a lot of little lines like that are just kind of like sprinkled in that says a lot. Because like it's never brought back up that he's been a replacement and he is going to be replaced someday.
Right.
That he was just
all these
raised
little
in
specks of detail, right?
Right,
because it's all just kind of like sprinkled in. Yeah.
Where he was raised and where he was born and raised was in an intelligence facility. So he was born to be this. This is it.
Which I think is part of the story too, honestly.
Exactly, yeah. Well, sure. But he's just the next in line of whatever. So probably all those.
He's like Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yeah.
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 He's a not a myth. Well, kind of a myth. There is no single Dread Pirate Roberts. It's just
right.
Yeah. He's playing up to a legend. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
All those other accidents in which he supposedly had things replaced, those Frankensteins died.
Probably. Yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah. But he's had he sees the shit from the inside and decides he wants to take it down.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
His car is so awesome. So freaking awesome. It's the alligator.
Yeah.
That looks like a fucking Hot Wheel. And I looked and I wanted a model or a Hot Wheel.
Of David Carradine's car?
Yeah. There was a model around the time that this was released, I think. And you can get some that have been, I think, 3D printed. But I thought for sure somebody out there would have made come on, Revel or, what's the other one? Is it AT or MTC? Come on, make a model of this. I want one.
The most of the cars in this were rear engine Volkswagens that Corman bought cheap. And he said it was because, they were cheap, but he also said it was because they were easier to build the chassis around, to modify them out with having the engine in the back. Cause most of your shots are from the front, right?
Right.
So he bought just a bunch of Volkswagens, at auction. Cheap and reliable, he said.
Yeah. And
the rear engine allows you to more easily build a fiberglass body around the shell. And we designed some bizarre bodies.
Yeah. But again, they are cool looking cars.
Yeah, they're really cool. I mean, Frankenstein's car is the best. I mean, it is the best. It's the toughest looking. But I also love
around the top. Oh,
but I also love the is it Viterbo who has the alligator car?
No, that's Frankenstein. Frankenstein's the alligator.
Oh,
Viterbo's got the big knife sticking out of the middle.
Yeah,
and
I like
Tommy guns.
I like his. Too.
I like Calamity Jane's. That's got the bull horns.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you had stepped away when I said that. Somebody had mentioned that whoever called her car the bull only got it half right.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. He has the alligator car. It's so cool.
Yeah.
The fin up through the middle of it. So cool.
Well, and that like that middle part makes me think of like the old Batmobile, right? Like where there was that middle part that came up and over in between Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
We might talk a little bit more about that.
It's interesting because
doubtful.
The internet say that was a Corvette, and it definitely looks like a Corvette, but
it is meant to be a Corvette.
Is it like
so
one
what
of those?
They probably did was they probably just got a front end of a Corvette, and plugged it in,
right? Fiberglass over the Volkswagen, yeah.
One of those triangle cars.
One of those triangle cars. Yeah, those triangle cars. Those futuristic 80s cars. Look like triangles.
I don't know what episode that was, but that's a callback.
That was Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah, it was the triangle car. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, also, I'm going to bring this up because I brought it up to Jason, and apparently he was whacked out of his gourd and didn't understand what I was saying. I love
I just read chick. I didn't read chic.
No, it was chic.
Yeah. You were like, I love this futuristic chick.
No,
I didn't read chic.
I love all the chicks in this futuristic
I'm like,
movie,
which one? And then he was like, the original. It's like, no, not which Death Race movie, which chick. It was like a very good who's on first moment.
Oh my God. And it was, and I was like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? But anyway, so I just gave up eventually. But
I did too. We both gave up.
It's like we'll talk about it tomorrow. Anyway, so when they get to St. Louis and they're all getting their naked massages next to each other.
Yeah.
And then they all retire for the night, right? And they're just in what I assume is either like a hotel ballroom or like a gym at a school or something. But you go into the room that Annie and Frankenstein are sharing, and it's just this gigantic space that's sparsely furnitured.
Furnished.
Yeah, furnitured, if you will.
I won't. It's furnished.
And it's just like orange carpet and orange like furnishings.
It's basically just a bed in a giant room for the most part.
Exactly. But it's like there's a thought there that's what the future is going to. There's a lot of things in the 60s and 70s that looked at the future as these wide open spaces that are sparsely furnished. The same thing, I think, Jason, we talked about this in the Star Trek The Motion Picture, how much I love that scene where Decker and Ilea are in the, like in that little entertainment room in the Enterprise. And it's like, this is what people in the 70s think the future is. Orange carpeting everywhere.
Right.
Everywhere. And when I saw that scene, I was like, oh my God, I want this for my future. Just this wide open room with nothing in it except for a bed. But yeah, I love that concept of what people in the 60s and 70s think the future is. Or will look like, at least. Because, I mean, again, the same year or around the same time, maybe it's the following year, is Logan's Run with a very similar, like, concept of, like, in Michael York's room, that was very clean and very minimized as far as what he had in there. And the one thing he did have was the crazy fuck transporter where he could beam in a lady or a guy if he's into it that night into his room. But what more do you need other than a bed and your fuck transporter? Anyway, that's a whole nother movie.
Yeah, Jeff.
We're talking about Roger Corman. I'm going to say some things that are going to be
Yeah. Trying to think. Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, Frankenstein knows something is different about Annie. She's not a typical navigator. She's smart, but she doesn't give him the best advice. He asks for something and she doesn't really know the answer. So he's picked up on a few things from her, and that's when we do find out that she was planted there by the resistance, that, you know, and what the plan will be from there. And then he doesn't seem worried about it at all. He has no problem wiping out much of the resistance himself, though.
No, he doesn't. He does fall into one of her traps, and gets away because they try to replace him with a fake Frankenstein.
A fake Frankenstein?
A fake Frankenstein. And he runs that fake Frankenstein over.
Just keep saying fake Frankenstein.
He fenders the fake Frankenstein. And that guy dies. And you can see Annie, right? Is that her name? Yeah. She was like, when it comes out that she's part of the resistance, she's like mourning them because they're her fellow compatriots. But he's like, what the hell am I supposed to do? I got my own mission, right? And that's he's like, I'm not going to let them take me captive. And eventually he shows her his hand.
You mean his hand grenade?
His hand grenade.
I fucking love that.
Yeah, me too.
Chuck grumbled,
It's
but I
so
don't care.
cheesy. It's almost 60s cheesy, like camp. It's very camp. Yeah. Because they know it's a silly line, silly throwaway. Like, but he literally has a fake hand
with a
hand grenade embedded in it that is live. And his whole purpose is to win the race, because when you win the race, you get to shake the president's hand. So he's going to kill the president. It's an assassination.
Yes.
And that turns out is very in line with the goals of the resistance.
So Annie becomes a little bit conflicted.
Right.
And he ends up protecting Annie at one point, because when it gets out to the people who run things that that the resistance is attacking the race, some people come and ask Frankenstein, like, hey, what's the story with this? Why did you go down that? Did your navigator tell you to take that turn, or did you do this on your own? And he's like, I did it on my own. And, and so, he's protecting her, and she's not entirely, she also found out whether or not they replaced his, other stuff. But he,
his other stuff, they had sex.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, she asks, it's like, did they replace anything else? Which is funny, because I just recently watched the Thing with Two Heads. Have you ever seen that, Chuck? With Rosie Greer and Ray Milland?
No, I don't think so.
In that, Rosie Greer or Ray Milland's head gets put on Rosie Greer's body, and they have two heads.
That sounds familiar.
And at one point, Rosie Greer goes to his girlfriend's place, and she asks them, did they give you two of anything else? And so I had just seen that when she had asked Frankenstein, did they replace anything else? And I just thought that was funny. It was a nice little symmetry there. Anyway.
I want to mention one thing here, because we're at that little dinner part where Frankenstein is protecting her. Obviously the government has been telling everyone it's the French that are killing the drivers and attacked Frankenstein. And I think it's Machine Gun Viterbo's lady that's with him is like, oh my God, the French. And what did she say? It was the French that attacked Nero and whomever else. And he's like, watch out for the crepe Suzettes. Fucking killed me.
Oh, that's so good.
There is one thing also early at one point, I think it's before we get, because this is basically leading, like, this stop off in, was it Albuquerque where their second pit stop was, or something?
It's the wrong turn in Albuquerque.
Yeah. But this is this kind of is the end of the second act. And some point before this, I think it's Joe for Viterbo who says, somebody said there's more to this than winning. And he basically says in so many words, winning is the only way to basically have any kind of a life. Like
that was Frankenstein.
Oh, was it Frankenstein?
That.
Yeah.
It was Frankenstein who said it. And where is it?
It's but I mean that's another indication of what's going on in the world too. It's like,
right.
I mean, it's
the only way to prove your worth, basically.
It basically says something along the lines of winning is the only thing we have left. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, here it is. Winning the race is the only standard of excellence left.
There you go.
Yeah. He also says it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game.
Which is hilarious.
He's full of platitudes, Frankenstein.
Yeah, and he doesn't mean any of them.
No.
He literally does not mean a single thing he says.
He's a walking contradiction the whole movie until the end when he reveals his true intention. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's kind of playing the character he's kind of programmed to be, right?
Yeah.
It's like he is the avatar for the state. And so he's kind of playing up those things that somebody, like from the state would say.
Yeah.
Right, because he can't have anyone suspecting him.
Right.
For the most
So,
part.
right. So he is doing what is asked of him.
Really, there's only kind of one thing left, right? After he says he has a hand grenade, and that's all the other drivers are dead through various means of like Warner Brother cartoon deaths.
Right. Because, Matilda the Hun, after she squishes Calamity Jane's navigator.
Yeah.
Calamity Jane races after her and is about to catch up to her, but there's
a Wile E. Coyote thing.
There's a Wile E. Coyote thing. They come out, like the resistance comes out with a little detour sign and then sets up a fake tunnel.
It totally is, yeah.
And it turns into an Italian movie for like 30 seconds with their car going down the hill and then exploding.
Right. And that's when Calamity Jane rolls up and is like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And then just drives off.
Martin Cove got baby bombed.
Yep.
Martin Cove got baby bombed.
What happened to the... Yeah, go ahead.
Calamity Jane runs over a landmine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is it at first, but then has to do a 3-point, which turns out to be like a 12-point turnaround.
Which is weird for such a good driver.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then she backs over and explodes.
Yeah.
So basically...
So that leaves Frankenstein
Viterbo
and
Frankenstein.
Viterbo.
Yeah.
There's a scene I want to talk about real quickly with Viterbo when the old like country bumpkin fisherman is in the creek. And he's like, "Oh, you're my favorite. I love you. Yeah, you're my favorite racer." And he calls him Frankenstein. And I kind of love that because I'm thinking like, why wouldn't you know that that's not Frankenstein? But I'm thinking he probably doesn't watch TV. He just he gets like news by ear maybe, and it's the only racer he's ever seen, and he probably just assumes because he looks tough that he's Frankenstein, his favorite racer, right?
Right.
And it's the wrong person to call Frankenstein.
Yeah.
He says, you're going to be dead in 3 minutes, or 3 seconds.
3
or whatever.
seconds. But what kills me about this is he's up on like a bank and the fisherman is right below him and he could just stay where he is and probably be okay. Because it's going to be really hard to get down there and get to him.
Right.
But he runs through the creek bed and he becomes easy fodder for Turbo to just run him over. Poor guy.
Turbo.
Poor guy.
Yeah, but...
Man, isn't Stallone a great heavy in this, though?
Oh, my God.
He's a great heavy.
He's my favorite Looney Tunes cartoon character.
Until he gets his ass kicked by Frankenstein when he finds Annie messing with the car.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Because
So, that's right. They have a fist fight after that because he's actually kind of warning him. He's like, your navigator's fucking with your car, but he was down there to fuck with his car too.
Right.
But he gets walked in on by Frankenstein, and while the Turbo was catching Annie. But Frankenstein was already kind of wise to that whole thing.
Well, he knew what was going on. He knew what was going on. He has a whole bucket of little green pills to use on her.
That tastes like peach.
Tastes like peach, but he thinks it's vanilla. As his taste buds.
That's a long story.
That was a funny joke too, though. When he's like, "Oh, I lost my taste buds," and
they got wiped out.
Yeah. in the crash of '93 or something.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. So, but I'm surprised how many of those he had. Like, is this something he does to all of his navigators? Because there's like a whole, it's a whole thing of them.
He probably has to knock himself out occasionally on rests and stuff like that. But
probably, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So basically, in the final stretch, as they're coming into L.A., new Los Angeles or whatever it's called. That's when the last chance for the resistance to come, and you got the guy in the helicopter who's like I don't know if he's Annie's cousin or brother or boyfriend or whatever, but he thinks that Annie is probably dead. So, I'm going to especially get Frankenstein. Frankenstein fucks them all up, kills them all.
Yep.
But
some good footage
And he
for a
tries-
Roger Corman movie. Some
Yes.
real
good.
good footage in this scene. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's cheap, so there's probably some danger involved.
So that train or that plane probably legit crashed and killed the pilot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Corman was probably like, cool, insurance policy paid off.
It was the 70s.
No,
Well,
I'm
then-
not going to
then-
slander Roger Corman. He was actually
No,
he was actually very conscious of safety. I'm not going to.
Well, he went he went over to John Landis like, now this is how you deal with this.
No, ooh,
Is that a bad joke? I don't understand.
Twilight Zone.
Oh,
Anyway, no, but the Resistance is able to get to Joe Viterbo, and they blow him up.
no.
No, the Joe Viterbo dies from the hand grenade
Yeah.
because
That's right.
because
that's
they're
right.
in, they're
You're
in the
right.
last
You're
stretch.
right. You're right.
They're in the last stretch, and
they're bouncing off of each other.
yeah, and Annie takes the hand grenade off of Frankenstein and throws it into Viterbo's car, and they both freak out in the car, and it blows up.
Yep.
And
That's
then
a big
Frankenstein's,
grenade.
you're going to have to shift now.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm worried about how I'm going to shake the president's hand. And he's like, well, the president's the one that should be worried.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
And you're
That's
like,
right.
bum, bum, bum.
He takes care of business though, because he comes in the finish.
It's kind of a weird plan.
Yeah, because Annie goes up. I don't know what. Well, Annie does this because he's missing his grenade hand, right?
Right.
So she
dresses as him.
She dresses as him.
With the little knife in her hand. But unfortunately, Thomasina Payne's like, oh, it's Frankenstein. We need to take that fool out instead of shooting the president. So we don't know this is happening, but she shoots her granddaughter.
Yeah.
And then Frankenstein's, well, fuck this. I'm going to naked drive and kill the president, which he does.
Yeah, he naked drives the president off the podium.
Yeah.
Yeah, into the
Takes him to Pound Town with his car.
Which is like, it's not a very satisfying death.
He did fuck him with that car. Yeah.
But he's like drives under him. He drives into the bottom of the podium.
Yeah, but that guy's old. So I mean, he's been president for like 20 years.
It's not.
I would have liked
death.
I would have liked to seen a dummy fly there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to see the president's dummy like fly across the
and then down a cliff and then explode.
And then down a cliff and then explode. Yeah.
Yeah.
With another hand grenade.
Yes.
Yeah.
He goes, haha, my left hand is also a hand grenade.
Or maybe like one of the resistance while the dummy's in the air, like shoot it with the machine gun.
Or if his winky was a grenade too, or a missile. If he had a grenade,
his winky.
His winky missile. That's an Austin Powers Goldmember reference. My winky was a key the whole time.
Oh gosh.
Oh boy.
His winky.
But anyway, Mr. President is dead, and guess what happens?
Well, whoever takes, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to guess that Frankenstein becomes the president.
He sure does.
President Frankenstein.
And Thomasina becomes the head of state, basically, I think is what they say.
Head of security.
They also
domestic
get married.
security. Yeah.
And Annie marries Minister of Domestic Security. That's what I just read.
That's what I just said, too.
They said, cool. Ministry of Domestic.
I said domestic security because she says anyone who doesn't like happiness will be dealt with or whatever.
Yeah. Which is pretty funny.
Yes. There's one more death to happen though, which is hilarious.
Oh yeah. So you got the shit-eating grin guy. Because we find out that that the older guy becomes the press secretary or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so like Junior Bruce seems he seems at first a little upset that he's not but he's like being like he's getting in Frankenstein's face about stuff, and he's like, do I really have to listen to this? And Annie's like, no.
Oh, Annie says that. Annie says, "Do I really have to? Do we really have to listen to this?" And that's when Frankenstein says, "No."
Nope.
And
I thought it was the other way around.
Nope, it wasn't.
It weren't. I just watched it.
Okay.
Annie was annoyed by it, and Frankenstein obliged her by running him over.
Yeah.
By knocking him out of his fucking pants.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good Wile E. Coyote kill.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I
I'm
wanted to see. At
surprised they
least the
didn't-
president's pants, flying
yeah.
off the podium.
Hanging from a flagpole or something.
Yeah.
Flagpole would have been good,
president.
actually.
The flagpole would have been great. Yeah. Maybe his underwear. Yeah.
Yeah. His patriotic underwear just hanging off of the.
The president has no
with
underwear.
Like the red, white, and blue. Yeah.
Is it like
No,
the
it's
emperor
not.
wears
It's red and white. It's red and white. There is no red, white, and blue anymore.
It's
they
almost
changed the flag.
Soviet.
Yeah,
looking.
it's.
Oh yeah, that's right.
There's like a fist with a lightning bolt or something on it, or yeah.
Anyway, that's the only complaint I have with this movie is how the president died. Everything else perfect.
It is a rather perfect exploitation, dumbass fucking movie.
Yep.
It really is, but it's. I mean, yeah, it's. Everything about it is dumb and silly, and doesn't hold up to too great of scrutiny if you think too much about it. But it doesn't matter. It's like they started making the Fast and Furious movies 25 years early. And that's fantastic.
I've never seen one of those.
I don't know how true this is, but
everything
Corman-
happened in 2000. This
Roger
movie
Corman-
is very true.
Roger Corman claims that Mad Max and George Miller and everyone got the idea for Mad Max from this. He said that they said it in an article somewhere. That's the only he couldn't cite a source, but that's what he claims. He claims that it was the inspiration for Mad Max, and it could be. It certainly predated it.
Just ask George Miller. I'm sure he'll let us know.
He would probably cop to it. I think there's no shame in copping to that.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I mean, why not? Why not?
Right.
Good thought, Jeff. Thank you.
Right. I mean, but no, I mean,
Roger Corman also says that Death Race 2000 was a true original, even though he was consciously trying to rip off Rollerball before it came out.
Which is hilarious.
I mean, it's original if you beat it to.
Fair enough.
But no, I mean, it is though. I mean, it is kind of. I mean, it is kind of original, right?
It's pretty damn original. It really is.
It's taking cross country racing. I mean, honestly, another movie that probably needs to cop to this a little bit is the Cannonball Run.
Oh,
right. Yeah. I mean, obviously they're not killing people, and that's a comedy.
Well,
it's a light
Cannonball came a year later, and guess who was in it as the star? It was David Carradine.
Right.
Yeah, and so yeah, you're right. I mean, it has a direct line of lineage to the Cannonball movies and what they became. Yep. Absolutely. And that's kind of why I picked it, because another movie that has a very direct line to the Cannonball movies that we're going to talk about in a couple weeks is It's a Mad World.
Right. I mean, big cast, yeah. No,
it's like the big Hollywood safe family version of this movie.
Yeah.
We probably need to wrap this up, or we're going to be longer than the movie.
That's true. I'm ready to wrap it up.
Yeah. So no, I mean, this is a fun movie. It is something you can watch on YouTube currently. It is not. I think it's out of print on DVD and whatnot, but there is.
You can order it on DVD, but there's no Blu-ray, no 4K.
Blu-ray is out of print.
But the what's on YouTube is actually a pretty good looking. It's like at least 720, so it's almost to full HD. Worth a watch. It's fun. It's silly. It's got, like I said, it's got cars going fast. It's got head squishings. It's got boobs. It's got butts. It's got Robert Carradine being a weirdo. Not Robert Carradine. The other Carradine.
David
Carradine being a weirdo. And Sylvester Stallone being essentially a crazy cartoon character. What more could you ever possibly want?
Don't be alarmed that the aspect ratio is in 1:33:1. That is the correct aspect ratio.
Yes.
It's basically a 4x3. Jeff is just looking like
TV box.
Who cares?
Yeah.
It's an old TV box. Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah.
It's the correct aspect ratio. I had looked it up because I always forget that it's not in like scope or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Roger Corman, you never quite sure.
Never know.
Never quite sure.
It's good to know what the intention of the director is, and if you're missing,
probably had a specific medium for the release of this. It might not have initially meant to go straight to drive-ins or something. Might have been initially produced for TV. I don't know.
Some directors just like to do that.
Yeah. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, next week we're going to do something that's kind of new. That actually is a suggestion that Chuck has had over the last year or so to do, and we'll talk a little bit more about that next time. But just in time for the return of this character played by this very specific actor to movie screens, we are going to talk once again about the 1989 Tim Burton, I'm going to say it, masterpiece, Batman.
Yay.
So we'll talk a little bit more about why we are revisiting this and why we might do this some more down the line. But that is next Wednesday, June 14th. Check that out. Next Monday, on Monster Mondays, we have Ebra, Horror of the Deep. Pop quiz. Who's the star? The star of Ebra, Horror of the Deep.
Female, I'm guessing.
Not technically.
Ebra.
No.
I don't know.
Godzilla.
Sea monster.
It's
Godzilla. Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
It's one of the movies that does not feature Godzilla in the title.
Interesting.
It is a Godzilla movie. So anyway, Mothra's in it too. So,
nice.
But anyway, that is Monday, June 12th. Monday afternoon, June 12th. So both of those shows you can listen to on filmseizure.com. You can also go there, find out all the various places you can follow us to get those sweet, sweet updates about when things come out and when episodes drop and when there's like reviews of current movies. I don't often bring those up on these because sometimes it's hard to say exactly when those current reviews do drop. So filmseizure.com, that's where you'll get all of our goodness. My website, bmovieanima.com. This Friday morning, I will be releasing my review of Vice Academy 2. Speaking of boobs and butts, and that's about it. That doesn't have quite as much stuff as Death Race 2000 has.
But it probably has more boobs and butts.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, you don't need to. I was just making a joke.
I don't know. I'm trying to think now. Yeah. Anyway, so that is Friday morning at bmovieanima.com. Check that out if you would. All right. So next week, it's Batman 1989 once again. So until then, I am Franken Machine Gun Arbuckle.
I'm Calamity Chuck.
You are. And I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.